this, but I'm really excited for all of you to be able to learn from him tonight and to understand, these category creating products. He's going to be talking about nutrigenomics and biohacking and the activation of pathways. So Dr. Goodman, can you just kind of share with the listening audience and the viewing audience, why LifeVantage? Why this company?
Well, I got to tell you that after studying what LifeVantage was doing with choosing first-rate products for the benefit of essentially all of humankind and realizing what impact that had on the future of how medicine is essentially going to be practiced in the future, they had that foresight, and I wanted to be on board with that. I mean, they have put together an incredible team of scientists, researchers, in order to bring just a paramount of products to the public. And it's my job, I see it my job to educate the public, is to make them realize, what they have in front of them at their feet. It's absolutely phenomenal that I even have the ability to talk about this.
Yeah, well, I'm really impressed with, who you're bringing on, your peers and other doctors in other areas of medicine. And all of you just seem to be understanding the direction, that healthcare is moving. So I'm really excited for all of you. And let's start out with, we're going to be talking about the Vitality Stack. And can you just kind of start out, with, our flagship product, the NRF2 Protandim? Help everyone understand the significance of what this product does, and how it works.
Absolutely. It's actually a complicated subject that can be broken down into small parts that I'm going to try to make everybody understand. And hopefully people won't be caught up in too much of the technology and be afraid of it. I think when you're afraid of something, you're afraid to try it. And in which case, then you're really missing an incredible opportunity. So let me go ahead and change my screen here to a slide presentation that I've done to try to address the subject of the science. And I'm going to start with my starter slide. So that's my picture, and we'll move from there. So let me move ahead, and let's just talk. I want to say real briefly that to my audiences, I make this a point that this potentially could be the single most important health presentation of a person's life. Of course, I have to also make the FDA disclaimer and say that we don't claim to treat, cure, or mitigate disease, because we are talking about a food product that is not technically a drug. However, I think when people see what it has the impact to do, that they can connect the dots and make their own associations and understand. So let's talk about the 4 pillars of human health, wellness, and aging. I break that down into 4 main pillars of health, and they include oxidative stress, mitochondrial function, the concept of the second brain, and then the blood-brain barrier. And at first, we're going to talk about oxidative stress, like Gabe, you suggested that I do, and I think that really gets at the heart of the flagship product, which is Protandim NRF2. So again, this is the core 4 of health. And let's go then and talk about oxidative stress in particular. And hopefully everybody could see this. This is our friendly oxygen molecule. And the oxygen molecule we think would be good. We need that to breathe, of course. We can't survive without oxygen. But I must also say that even though we take that first breath, that air that we breathe at first when we're babies is really only 21% oxygen. 78% of it is actually inert. It's nitrogen. More is toxic. And in my field of pediatrics, if I take care of premature babies and I expose them to too much oxygen, it actually would lead them to become blind. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we need it, but it's also damaging and potentially toxic. And in fact, it's slowly killing us. And I think that's the thing that most people don't really understand, is that the very thing that we breathe is what's going to take us out at the end of our lives. And that's a phenomenal statement. I just don't think anybody has a concept. I knew I was blown away by it when I mentioned it to people. They were looked at me like I was funny.
Mhm.
And the reason is that oxygen causes oxidation. What is oxidation? Well, its effect on metal is pretty clearly seen. If you have a piece of steel, it causes it to rust. And aluminum, it causes it to corrode. But your cells are rusting too. They just rust in a different way. Initially, you see that as wrinkles, maybe cell damage, aches and pains from inflammation in your joints as you get wear and tear. Essentially, it leads to aging, ultimately disease, and finally, cell death. So this is what oxygen does to our bodies. And if you take a piece of fruit, say, that you bite into, like an apple, and everybody's seen the apple that sits on the countertop, and after it sits there for about a half an hour or so, it starts to turn brown, and it starts to get pretty ugly looking. And this is what it looks like. And that's because it's made of flesh. And we're also made of flesh. And this is the effect that oxygen has on our bodies, except we don't necessarily see it all at once. It's a very slow process, but it is happening. So what causes that to happen like that? Well, essentially free radicals, the concept of free radicals. These are supercharged oxygen particles that are generated by our daily exposures to ionizing radiation, smoking, air pollution, UV light, 150 different things that are in our environment. And essentially these free radicals act like, well, being an Army guy, act like shrapnel or tons of debris that explode within the cell. And in doing so, they create damage to our own DNA, and they also damage our mitochondria. So this is a devastating thing to our cells, and they can't sustain it for very long. But the common denominator here is oxygen. And that's why it's such a devastating, dangerous thing in the long run. So we're going to just refer to free radicals and oxygen damage as the bad guys. That's just a nice, easy way to remember it. These are the bad guys. Keep it simple. All right, well, how did our body deal with this? Well, it dealt with it at birth because we were actually armed at birth with some primary internal antioxidants. And those primary internal antioxidants are present in every single one of our cells, whether they're your eye cells, your hair cells, your skin cells, they're everywhere. And they're in the millions, and they're doing a great job keeping free radical damage at bay. But we don't know that growing up. So we're told by our physicians, me also, that we should eat more vitamin E and more vitamin A, eat kale and broccoli. But these are actually secondary dietary antioxidants. They help, but they cannot keep up with the constant onslaught of free radicals that are produced in the millions by our bodies. So we really want to depend on these three internal primary antioxidants that we were born with, and they go by three names: SOD, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase. And Gabe, I'm not going to have a test at the end of this lecture. Okay, I know everybody wants one, but these three, I just want everyone to know that these are super important because they are the most powerful antioxidants our body can actually make, and are so many more times powerful than anything we could possibly eat. And they have the capability to cope with the free radical onslaught. And we're going to refer to these as the good guys. All right, so now we got good guys and we got bad guys. And these good guys have a Superman symbol by them because we want them to be by our side just like Superman. All right, so when the amount of free radicals exceeds our ability to neutralize them, that's what we mean by the term oxidative stress. And we've tossed that term around a lot, but that's essentially what it means. It's an imbalance. All right, so oxidative stress, we know, is the main cause of aging. And it's also the cause of over 200 diseases. And if you go to pubmed.gov, which is the NIH literature website, essentially, you can type in oxidative stress and almost any disease that you want to name, and you're going to get a hit. And you're going to see where there is an association. And this is what I meant about connecting the dots. If you could help oxidative stress in your body and reduce it, you have potentially the key to reverse aging, as well as many, many diseases that the human race is exposed to and suffers with. So this is what this slide is saying. Inflammation and oxidative stress is at the central core of all of these organ systems around the outside that could be affected by oxidative stress. In the brain, we talk about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Those people have approximately 7 times the amount of oxidative stress that we do. People who have ADHD and autism, people who have suffered from strokes, people who have heart disease, who suffer from myocardial infarction or hardening of the arteries. How about joints, osteoarthritis? There's hundreds of diseases that are all related to the central concept of inflammation and oxidative stress. And this is the buzzword now in medicine, inflammation and oxidative stress. So I've been treating all of these diseases individually by putting patients on medicines for their lungs, giving them ADD medicines for children, for example. But maybe, in fact, what we should be doing is trying our best to reduce the central area of inflammation and oxidative stress. And when we do that, and we bring in Superman, now we're talking. Now we're going to get some traction about trying to improve ourselves and improve disease, because we're going to increase the cellular production of our internal antioxidants, which consist of superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione. Those 3 good guys. That's what we want to do. We want to bring them up. We want to upregulate them. All right, well, we're able to do that because, you know what? They're coded for by genes. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and all of these horizontal bands that you see here on these chromosomes represent a gene. And those genes code for proteins and enzymes, like those good guys we talked about. Well, if we could turn those on some way, we have the key to some major success. And in fact, we have that key right now, because we know that the NRF2 protein and the NRF1 protein, which have been identified as master regulators of cell protection, they're some of those genes that can actually be turned on. So if we can activate that NRF2 protein by Superman, we can increase superoxide dismutase by 34%. I mean, listen to this, 34%. You can increase catalase by 54% and increase glutathione by 300% in 120 days. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. There's no other substance that we have in our arsenal that can do such a thing. And we're talking about doing this internally. We're not talking about taking an IV or taking a medicine. We're talking about having our own body cells, every single one of our 37 trillion cells, turn on simultaneously the ability to turn on these good guys and reduce oxidative stress from free radical damage by 40% in 30 days. That's every single person who's ever taken it. Gabe, this was tested in studies that were peer-reviewed by the University of Colorado Health Sciences, Virginia Commonwealth University, Harvard University, Ohio State University. These are major institutions, and they all came to the same conclusion and published their results in PubMed.gov, and you can find those because all those literature results are available, and they're available on the LifeVantage website as well. And not only do we have the ability to turn on and reduce oxidative stress due to free radical damage by 40%, but we also have the ability to turn on survival genes, which are other genes that are at play in our system. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that your DNA that you are coded with is not your destiny. You can change that. And the reason is that only 20% of your DNA is ever expressed. 80% of it essentially lies dormant. You can change the way that your genes are expressed. And when you do that, that's where the term biohacking comes from. It's not a bad thing. You're not hacking a computer. You're talking about hacking into your DNA code by using a food product to turn on the good guys so that you can fight the bad guys. Because otherwise, what alternative do you have? The alternative is to be hijacked. And you know what? We're hijacked every single day that we live. We're hijacked physically through injury, exposure to cancer-causing substances, emotionally through our daily stressors of everyday life, biochemically through toxins, radiation, allergens, pollution, poor food choices and things that we choose to eat, unfortunately, drugs and alcohol. But when you biohack, you're optimizing your already coded genetic potential. I mean, you become the best version of yourself, and you're using the science of nutrigenomics. So what is nutrigenomics? So Gabe, the nutrigenomics is where you use food and you use food products to essentially interact with your genes so as to get a desired result. That's the new science. All
Dr.
right.
Green, I want to back you up just a little bit because I know you used the term good guys and you had this Superman symbol and you were talking to the audience about, glutathione peroxidase and SOD and catalase. Folks, what I want you to understand, the reason why Dr. Goodman calls them the good guys and Superman is because what they do is they work like a catalyst. They promote the reaction of getting rid of. So in other words, it's good guys versus bad guys. The first 20 years of life, nobody ages. You predominantly grow because you have an over and abundance of those good guys. And you had those Superman good guys annihilating those bad guys at 1,000,000 to 1 per second. So
Right.
one of those good guys were annihilating 1,000,000 bad guys per second.
Right.
While
They're incredibly powerful, and you have a ton of them when you're young.
can you help everyone understand the difference between indirect and direct? Because everyone knows what direct antioxidants are, but what they don't know is those 3 Superman products that you're talking about are indirect. Help them understand the difference between the two, because that's going to
Right.
really, excite them.
Right. Right. Well, essentially, if you ingest a antioxidant like, say, vitamin C, or you eat kale, you're essentially taking in one molecule that has the ability to get rid of one molecule of a free radical. But when you activate your body's superoxide dismutase and those good guys that Gabe talked about, you have the ability to get rid of 1,000,000 of those free radicals, because the amount of energy and destructive ability of our own antioxidants is so much more powerful than anything you could possibly ingest. You would have to have 11 pounds of blueberries and like 87 glasses of wine to equal the power of just one protandem molecule, protandem supplement that we might take in order to turn on our NRF2. So NRF2 is the key. If we can turn that on, our internal antioxidants are just so much more powerful because they appear in every single one of our cells. Whereas if you eat just a piece of food, kale or broccoli, you have to ingest that, and it really only pales in comparison.
That's so incredible. And you got me there. How can I take this product? That's just insane to me.
Right. It's incredible potential. And I want to talk briefly, Gabe, about the difference between supplementing and activating. I think there's a lot of confusion about that. When you supplement, you're just guessing. You don't have any product-specific research that tells you what that does. I mean, there are hundreds of vitamin D tablets out there. What calcium product do you choose? What does it do to your cells? There's lack of quality control. Which company is good? Which company is bad? Who suggested to take that individual product? Do you really know what the end result of gene expression or your overall cellular health is? And the answer to that is you don't. But when you're talking about the new science of nutrigenomics that I was talking about, you're talking about today's breakthroughs. These are studied. Gabe, this is studied in major academic institutions and published. We've known about this for a number of years. And when people read these studies, if they could digest it, and I guess that's half the problem. The lay public really isn't going to understand that.
Right.
And so I see my role as educator to get out into a public forum and to talk to people and try to put it into a simple, easy to understand format of what they are trying to say and explain in these very complicated published studies. And essentially, these are independent funded studies. They're not even being done by LifeVantage. They're being done by universities and institutions on their own accord. So they look at the end result on genes and cellular health. And they're also using the concept of synergy. I'm going to talk about synergy for a minute because synergy has to do with how things work in combination to a greater good. But first, I want to say something That's that people are fed by the food industry, which pays absolutely no attention to health. And they're treated by the health industry, which I'm in. And we generally pay no attention to food. I mean, with that as our background, we don't stand a chance. So when LifeVantage got a hold of the concept of nutrigenomics and uses food to the advantage of human betterment, they seek to change that paradigm of the little yellow pill. I mean, this is what Protandim NRF2 and Protandim NRF1 does. I mean, we're using an incredible power of a God-given natural product to effect a change in our humanness. So if we look at Protandim NRF2 Synergizer a little more closely and what it actually is, it's 5 organic plant-based products that are very, very ultra pure, even better than organic. And they include ashwagandha root, bacopa extract, green tea extract, which has been used by the ancients for, 5,000 years, milk thistle, and turmeric, which also is a Indian product that's used as an herbal remedy for lots of different things. But honestly, they didn't really know why it worked. They knew that it did work. And when you look at these individual bar graphs showing these individual products and how they affect the NRF2 messenger protein that I was talking about, that key that turns on those good guys, you see that the effect is relatively little. But when you put them together in just the right amount, you get an 1,800% activation. I mean, they work synergistically to the betterment of each other. This is what the patent is for from Protandim and from LifeVantage. And what they've got here is absolutely incredible. And that's why it's a flagship product. And I'm just thrilled that I can even talk about it. Let's look real quickly. I want to just reiterate what it does. So Protandim NRF2, what it does is it lowers your oxidative stress by 40%. That's everybody, okay? They tested that in age 20 to age 70, and it did this in essentially everyone. It significantly reduces cellular stress through the NRF2 activation, and as Gabe and I just mentioned, it induces enzymes that are capable of neutralizing more than 1 million, that's Gabe, 1 million free radicals in every single one of your cells, not just one cell, not just your liver, not just your brain, every cell in your body. This is absolutely unheard of. And that's why, I have to talk about it. And the other thing is, and we didn't even talk about this really in detail, but it activates 400 other survival genes that you need to live. And it has an effect on that. And when it does that, it's essentially like tuning your piano. And I'm going to talk about that concept in a minute. But essentially what it does is it repairs your body, helps you rejuvenate your own cells from the inside out, and it also is the only natural supplement that has been shown in animals to extend life by 7%. Can you believe this? The National Institute of Aging. This is a division of the National Institute of Health. This is a government agency that we're talking about here.
And I understand that was a 10-year study too, which is fascinating to me.
Absolutely. It was a longitudinal study, and they looked at that. You mentioned before, how much of these other one-to-one antioxidants that you take, direct antioxidants, would you have to take? 375 oranges you'd have to take to equal 1 Protandim. 87 glasses of red wine with resveratrol, 11 pounds of blueberries, or 120 vitamin C tablets in a day. It's just not possible to take that many and to have an effect. Whereas 1 Protandim activates 1 million antioxidant particles that your body actually produces. So if you look at this graph, look at this red bar. Can you see that on your screen, Gabe?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that elevated bar shows the relation of oxidative stress as you age. And you can see that from age 20 to age 80 and above, it's a straight line up. Okay, that's your oxidative stress potential without Protandim. Now, when you give clients Protandim, this is what happens. It's completely level. Look at this. It is the level at 80 that it was at the age of 20. Essentially, you've reduced your cellular aging and your oxidative stress at all ages. I mean, Gabe, all ages, it doesn't matter how old you are or when you decided to take this, it's still going to work for you. And it reduces by 40 to 70% in about everyone in 30 days. That's an FDA approved statement that we can say that Protandim reduces oxidative stress to that level.
That's just
All right, so
that's incredible.
I mean, it's incredible. And I'm hoping that everybody understands this. You know, I want to just mention another analogy. I like using this one because it sort of brings in this concept of tuning a piano. If your piano was your body, and each of the keys in the piano was one of your genes, this is a piano that Grandma bought in 1969. And look at the green bars. They're nice and level. They're playing in a nice harmonious way. This is the concept of tuning. Everything sounds good. But what happens when that piano sits in the attic for 50 years and nobody plays it? The keys begin to stick and those notes are not quite sounding so good, are they? So guess what? Our body's that piano. It's 50 years old, or let's just say it's aging. And as it ages, our genes are also out of tune. So let's look at this. This is what your genes look. These are just 63 of the 400 genes that Protandim affects as survival genes. And look at the range of up and down here. This piano is all over the place. You've got ones that are low. Those represent glutathione and superoxide dismutase, which may be reduced as we get older. And look at this one over here. This may represent some of the genes that are responsible for causing hardening of the arteries and metabolic syndrome and also fibrosis of your heart. But look what happens to this. I mean, this is absolutely compelling. When you put Protandim in the situation and you measure these genes again, this is what you see. Can you see those green bars?
It's going to take some.
Are you seeing those now? Look at this. The one that was high, that was over here, is now lower. It was down-regulated. And the one that was low is now higher. That is upregulated. That would be, for example, the good guys that we talked about. They're brought up. I'm going to go back. Look at this. This is what it looked like. This is horrible. You're totally out of tune. Okay, 400 genes, not just the 3 that I talked about, but 400 genes that you need to survive. And they're completely messed up. And now this is what it looks like. Totally smooth and tuned. You don't think that this piano is playing a lot better than that other piano? You bet it does. And I'm going to show you. That's why we're doing this. We want to bring it into harmony. So in the future, Grandma and her piano, she's going to say that they had their genes tuned by Protandim. That is an amazing, amazing feat. In fact, it's so amazing that Washington State University in 2015, this is a prestigious medical center and university, they said this was potentially the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. And Gabe, this is why I wanted to get on board with LifeVantage. This is what this is all about.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. And I know we were very, very limited on time. So in closing with the activation of the NRF2 pathway, folks, basically what Dr. Goodman just taught us is taking antioxidants are now a thing of the past, because making them is the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct.
As he said, it's a better tool. It's more efficient, and more importantly, it's safer. Some people don't understand that if you take too much vitamin C, it actually becomes a pro-oxidant. So it creates more free radicals. The NRF2 activation of that pathway won't allow your body to do it, because simply it just gets your own body to do its own work, what your body was meant to do for the first 20 years of life. And for all of you that are on this webinar tonight that are entrepreneurial in thinking, imagine having a business that there's no competition. Folks, what Dr. Goodman is teaching us right now, we are the only activator that's all natural out there. So I want you to be thinking about this from a business standpoint, as well as a physiological standpoint. So Dr. Goodman, let's go ahead and we're going to have to kick this in. I
I'm going to
do.
go by real fast on this, Gabe, and I won't interrupt very much, except to just sort of fly through these three and just hit it real fast. We're going to talk about mitochondrial dysfunction and the NRF2 or NRF1 protandem as well. I just want to say that the mitochondria is responsible for all energy production in the cell. We need this little guy to work for us, and if it's not working, we're not well. Okay, so all the metabolic energy in the cell is produced by that mitochondria. So can you imagine if the free radical damage damages the mitochondria over here, this pink structure, what that could happen to our cells if that happens? Essentially, it destroys the nucleus of the cell and destroys our ability to produce energy. And when you do that, these little mitochondria that you see here, they are essentially gone, and that cell dies. And I mean, the nucleus in the cell can live on, but without mitochondria, that cell is dead. And that's part of our dying process. So we don't want that to happen, and we don't want our cells to be destroyed from the inside out by free radical damage. So anything we can do to support that, we're going to try to do. And that's what protandem NRF1 does. So if you have decreased mitochondria, you have decreased metabolism. And if you have decreased metabolism, you have no energy for the cell, and you're going to gain weight. And if you have decreased energy, you're not going to heal. And the last part of this is if you don't heal, you're not going to feel good. Your emotional state is going to be reduced, and you can't concentrate and think. So that's what protandem NRF1 is. It activates.
Yeah, so basically, folks, what he just said, if you want to sleep better and have more energy, this is the product that you want to take because it activates the pathway that makes more ATP, which is fuels that mitochondria for energy. That's absolutely as impressive as the NRF2 activator.
Absolutely. And the two of them together are the 1-2 punch, and they constitute the two major components of the vitality stack. So you get all of that in that vitality stack. And going on to the second brain, we can talk about the probiotics. You know, the second brain is essentially, what is it? It's your gut. Bacteria in your gut are essentially talking to your body. You don't realize it, but the number of bacteria in your gut is actually more than all of your human cells combined. So therefore, we're actually more microbial than we are human. I mean, that's unbelievable. And if you think that those bacteria that live in your gut are ill, then you're going to start to absorb some of their aberrant signaling. You're going to pick up some of the neurotransmitters. They actually have the ability to produce neurotransmitters like your first brain does. And that's why we call the gut the second brain, because they can actually make you feel pretty bad. So that microbiome secretes the same things, serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine that your brain does. So you need that gut to be in good health in order for you to feel well. And that's why probiotics are so important. And what makes this probiotic especially important is that it is the only probiotic that contains a biotract formulation that essentially allows it to deliver 60% of the payload of 6 billion colony forming units to your gut, whereas most other probiotics only get 4 to 5% through your system, and that's because they're destroyed by stomach acid. So essentially, it's 15 times more bioavailable. There is no other probiotic like this. And it's a time-release bacterial delivery system that releases it over 10 hours to your large intestine, where it's supposed to be. And lastly, because the gut also is home of 70% of your immune system, it contains Wellmune, so that your gut will be quick to respond to threats and disease. Wow. So that's a huge, huge tool in this kit.
Something that I just learned, and it was actually I learned from you, Dr. Goodman, the last time that you were on this webinar for us. I didn't realize that all other probiotics, only 4 to 7% got to where it needs to be. And because of this timed release formula, and it's encapsulated, so the stomach acids doesn't eat it up, over 60% gets to where it needs to be. I mean, done. Okay, where do I get it?
Yeah, essentially, you know, it's not that everybody touts how many bacteria are in their probiotic. It's not the number that's on the pill. It's how many of that number get to your gut. So if you take 10 billion and only 2% or 4% get to your gut, it's essentially worthless. You might as well just throw your money down the drain.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that information. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk lastly about the last component, Gabe, of the vitality stack, and that has to do with the blood-brain barrier. I don't know if people realize it, but your brain is mostly made of fat. It's 70% fat, and most of the fat is omega-3 fatty acids. It's what went to form your brain when you were small. So omega-3s are necessary to have a healthy brain membrane. And they're also important for your muscles and joints. And as a side benefit, they lower your cholesterol, improve your cellular communication pathways. And not only that, but they're anti-cancer and anti-diabetes. You absolutely need to have omega oils in your system. And not only that, in this product, they include omega-7, which is also anti-inflammatory for your joints and anti-diabetes. And lastly, the mother of all antibiotics is vitamin D3. It's included in the amount of 800 international units. You need this for your bones, your muscle, your immune system. You can't get along without it. There are so many humans that are vitamin D deficient because they don't take vitamin D in their diet. It also helps to protect your prostate and breast in women. And remember this, that the DHA ratio in this is 3-to-1. This is the same as what is in mother's breast milk. And that's what went to go and make your brain when you were born. It's of the purest quality. It's 100% traceable. It's not rancid. It doesn't have a fishy smell. In fact, it tastes sort of lemony when you bite into it. And it goes to make your brain tissue, which is your daily dose of smart. That's why mom told you, hey, you need to eat fish if you want to be smart and go to school. So like this little girl who's really smart, she's taking her fish oil pill and she's not complaining at all because she doesn't have fish indigestion, she doesn't have an upset stomach, and she doesn't smell like fish. This is Dr. Charlisa Hudson's daughter, Elle.
That's awesome.
So Gabe, that is just the part of the Vitality Stack over here that includes all 4 of those products besides the entire LifeVantage line.
Well, thank you so much for your expertise. And folks, we do have a skincare regimen that works, on the outside of the body in. Basically what Dr. Goodman just educated all of us tonight on, those 4 products works inside out, especially the NRF2 and the NRF1 activators. And obviously your skin is your largest organ, right? Very, very important. And I've always been taught if you're going to do something, you do it 100% right. You don't do it 50% right and just protect the body from the inside out. You protect it from the inside out and the outside in. So maybe next week we'll have a skincare specialist talk about the activation of the NRF2 product with the skincare. Your dogs age 7 times faster than we do, meaning they have 7 times the oxidative stress levels we do, and we actually have a pet tandem. So there's some information that we can go there. But what I'd like to do is just take about 5-6 minutes and just talk about the opportunity. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen, and I'm hoping I don't have any difficulties with it. Good, it comes out all right. And this is what I want everyone to understand. This is what Dr. Goodman was sharing with us tonight, was this Vitality Stack. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what I want everyone to understand, okay? Everybody follows the Oscars, right? The Oscars are the best actors and actresses in the world. Well, actually, this award is the same thing as the Oscars, but it's on the supplement world. So out of 3,900 entries poured in from 74 countries around the world, and what I want everyone to understand, this Vitality Stack is not even a year old yet, okay? And I'm talking about the core 4, all 4 of those products. That product that Dr. Goodman just shared with all of us tonight is rated #1 in the world. So folks, if what Dr. Goodman didn't resonate with you on why you need to take those 4 products and everybody that you love and care for, this is what 74 countries, and these are the top, supplement gurus, the manufacturers and the people who study and who test all the products, that you're looking at #1. That's how fascinating the science is. And that's why you're hearing the excitement in Dr. Goodman's voice. You hear how excited he is? I mean, he can't share enough because there's so much to share that we haven't actually talked about. So just really quick, what I want you to understand, this company kind of blossomed because of an ABC primetime news piece. This company was a biotech company. It's, from 2003 to 2009, and all of us could have bought this in a retail store. But when the science started to come out, ABC News got their paws on it, and they tried to, debunk it. And it actually became our commercial. So what I want all of you to understand, when it was in the retail world, the company never exceeded 3 million in sales a year in revenues. And the minute that we took it out of the retail world and put it into the oldest form of marketing, actually what we're doing tonight, sharing information, storytelling, educating people, it grew from 3 million to just under $250 million. So it's absolutely an incredible model to share people that you love and care for with. It's publicly traded. So every word that came out of Dr. Goodman's mouth tonight, he could not embellish. When he said they're peer reviewed, they are peer reviewed. There are actually 27 of them now that's done on the product, not ingredients that's in the product. So he said eloquently the difference between supplementation and activation. Just think of a question mark next to supplementation, because that's basically what he said. It's guessing, I think, is the word that he used. And activation is peer reviewed. It's perfected. All right, so that's what I want you to understand. And I want you to understand the leadership that's behind this company now. The CEO, Darren Jensen, he basically took this little itty bitty company that was basically an NRF2 company, because we only had NRF2 Pro Tandem, and he made it into a nutrigenomic company. And it's just now, I said made it. We are just now being known as the nutrigenomic company. So from an opportunity standpoint, folks, I tell you what, to be first is a big thing. And for the entrepreneurs that are on this webinar, it's real simple. What if ABC News comes knocking on your door and says, hey, listen, we've heard nothing but great things about your business. Would it help you build your business? That's why Dr. Goodman and myself is so excited, right? All I did was point guide direct people to that video and then put them on the phone with somebody smarter than me. And I know every last one of you can do the same thing. You don't have to be a Dr. Goodman. Now, on top of having ABC News as your commercial, what if the business that you're in right now, there's no competition? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Folks, that's what we have. We're first to market. It's a no-brainer. So that's why I'm excited. I saw this from that point of view. And I spent 34 years in the fitness industry, and the word retirement was nowhere on the horizon. And I was able to walk away, as I mentioned earlier, in 22 months. And that was 7 years ago. And nobody knows what nutrigenomics is yet. Nobody has ever heard of the activation of pathways, or biohacking the aging code. So if you're looking for something and not really quite sure what you're looking for, you might want to start this as a side hustle like I did. I started this as a side hustle to make $2,200 a month to keep my kids in private school, because in 2009 I got hit hard financially. Never in a million years I would have ever thought I'd be walking away from that industry in 22 months. So that's how big the opportunity is for each and every one of you. When I started with the company, we were in one market, the United States. Now we're in 17 markets. If you go to Yahoo Finance and type in our stock symbol and read the performa, we're projected to be in 100 markets. Oh, actually it says over 100 markets. So folks, there's nowhere to go but grow. I say this all the time. Our largest income earners are not even enrolled yet, because when you hit a certain rank And Dr. Goodman is knocking on that rank really soon. You get paid in worldwide revenues, all right? So you get paid on every single bottle, every single product, and every single country. Imagine that. Imagine a big corporation that you work for, and you got paid on every single product that was sold. That's what makes this opportunity so incredible. And what's the reason why Dr. Goodman is able to build this, what I call a side hustle, and he's knocking on what we call a Pro 6 door, which is doing $50,000 a month in revenues, is because he can do this in the nooks and cronies of his time. You can build this business on your smartphone because the advent of the internet, on the app. He can just send a message to somebody to have them take a look at this video. So that's what's fascinating. The system is incredible. The industry is moving northward because the internet. I mean, think about this. Dr. Goodman is in his home in Georgia. I'm in my home in Jacksonville. And last time I looked, we had over 250 people on this webinar all over the country. And Dr. Goodman, someone with that stature can help us build our business. And you're in the confines of your own home. And everybody that you got on this webinar, every guest that's in their own home, how cool is that? That's why we're the second largest industry in the world, only to oil and gas. And we're over 200 billion in 2018 already. So it's a big business. It's not a small business. Timing's everything. The company is still in the infancy stage. We're not branded. And just real quick, if I mention Mary Kay, Herbalife, light bulbs go off, right? Now I mention to you LifeVantage. Disconnect. It's because we're not branded yet. Momentum, 80% of market share, 80% of money happens in the momentum phase. If you bought $1,000 worth of Microsoft stock in the late 70s, you're worth millions and millions and millions because of momentum. So we haven't hit, we haven't branded ourselves yet, and we haven't hit momentum. We're still in the infancy stage. You don't want to be with companies like Mary Kay or Herbalife or Microsoft because they're in the stability phase. I call the stability phase the too late phase. What if you went to go buy $1,000 worth of Microsoft stock tomorrow? What are you going to get? A dozen shares, if that? Too late, right? So timing is everything. Real important. I'm just going to take a minute or two. Most people in this country are building somebody else's dream because they don't have the means to open up their own business. What's fascinating about this industry is you're just buying product up front. It's low barrier entry. You can get started for as low as $350, and you're buying $300 in product at 20% below wholesale. The $50 of that $350 is a business in a box. If you have a bigger family or your bandwidth is a little bit bigger, you can get the 650 kit, which you're buying $600 worth of product at 25% below wholesale, so you're getting a better deal, and you're getting some artificial intelligence, some apps, and you're also getting event passes. And if you're like Dr. Goodman that has a bigger bandwidth, we have a $1,250 pack, which you're buying $1,200 worth of product at 30% below wholesale, and you get 2 event passes, and all the goodies are just bigger and better. So that's the biggest bang for your buck. You can see at the bottom of that screen, it's nearly an $1,800 full price, and you're buying it for $1,250. So what I want you to understand, the only 2 things that we have to do is get customers, consumers, and business partners. Corporate does everything else. You can look on the right side of that screen, everything from events, promoting, accounting, legal, compliance, marketing, advertising, your website, customer service, shipping, quality control, production, all the nuts and bolts, all the moving parts of building the business, we don't have to do. It's fascinating. And most importantly, the cost of doing business is $200 a month. So for all of you that own your own business, what if your balance sheet, under fixed cost, said $200. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I think my quote was, when I heard that for the first time, give me 5 of those, all right? Because my payroll alone was $50,000 a month. And what's fascinating, folks, you can actually mitigate that $200 commitment to be paid all 8 different ways. You can mitigate it down to 40 because you have 160 in customers. And to kind of help you to understand the ratios, LifeVantage, the 200 plus million that we did last year, 74% of that 200 million are just consumers. That's the bedrock. That's the foundation. That's your fortune. And that's why Dr. Goodman's behind the product, as he mentioned earlier. So just get with the person who invited you on this webinar. Let them share with you the 8 different ways of how to get paid. We just don't have time. I'm actually 10 minutes over right now. But when you have somebody like Dr. Goodman on, the webinar, I'm going to let him go for as long as I can. So I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. Get with the person who invited you and thank them because they thought enough of you from a physiological standpoint or maybe from a financial standpoint. And what I teach our team is we're looking for the biggest, the best, the brightest. People that have credibility and integrity in large circles of influence or knows how to build a business. That's why you're on. So thank them. They think that highly of you. And all we do is, band together. Teams win, individuals lose, and we work together. What I mean by that, in this industry, you cannot get what you want until you help enough people get what they want. That's the world of networking. So don't think of this opportunity as selling pills. We're in the business of connecting people. We're in the business of building a network. And the person who invited you tonight, they want your network. That's what it is. And we look for the biggest, the best, and the brightest, and we all band together and we all beat to that drum. And we're helping people, from a physiological standpoint and a financial standpoint. And have the person who invited you on this webinar to share this slide with you. This is a income disclosure statement. Because we're publicly traded, this statement has to pass 2 incredible organizations, the Security and Exchange Commission for accuracy and the Federal Trade Commission for accuracy. And as I mentioned, Dr. Goodman is knocking on that Premier Pro 6 door. And just look at that. The average income, this is part-time. The average annual salary for a 6 is $70,000 a year. And he's doing this in the nooks and crannies of his time. And the monthly average is over $5,800 a month. And he's been doing this since December, folks. So it's been 9 months and he's created what we call an annuity. Remember, this is leveraged income, doing something one time and getting paid again and again and again. This is not trading time for money. He doesn't have to do that $50,000 each month. He's not as good as his last month, like the sales world. He's creating an annuity. And that's what I want the person who invited you on this webinar tonight to really kind of hammer. That's why I've been able to retire after 22 months. That's why our team has been able to retire 25 families. Think about this. Employees, they don't retire early, do they? Right? You have to have some leverage, and that's what this industry will do. So I tell you what, folks, incredible company, incredible people behind the company as Dr. Neil Goodman is. So thank you so much for being on the webinar tonight. We will be back next Monday night at 9 p.m. I've been getting a lot of questions. Is this incredible webinar, recorded? Yes, it is. It's going to be on my website, which is connectandimpact.today. It might be a day or two for us to get it on. We might edit, the first couple of minutes of it, but give us a day or two, but it will be on there. So thank you so much, Dr. Neil Goodman, for being our guest speaker tonight. Did an incredible job. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate it. And so for all of you, thank you for your time getting on tonight. We'll see you next Monday night, same meeting ID number. Good night, everybody. Take care.